There is a bean sitting in the desert right now that needs almost no water to grow. A bean that survived where nothing else could. A bean with more protein than kidney beans, more fiber than black beans, and a glycemic index so low that an entire civilization ate it for 5,000 years and never knew the word diabetes. Not per pound, per serving. For 5 millennia, this bean fed empires across the American Southwest. It thrived in temperatures that would kill corn in a single afternoon. It produced harvests with nothing but 2 monsoon rains. And today, most Americans have never heard its name. The United States government replaced it with commodity foods. Industrial agriculture buried it under cotton fields. And an entire people watched their health collapse within a single generation. They call it the Tepary bean. The archive opens in 1912. Ethnographer Carl Lumholtz traveled deep into the Pinacate Peaks of Sonora, Mexico. He expected barren sand. He expected lifeless volcanic rock. He expected a landscape where agriculture was simply impossible. What he found instead stopped him cold. Small, cultivated fields of beans, thriving in a landscape that receives only 3 inches of rain per year. Temperatures reaching 118 degrees Fahrenheit. Soil so alkaline that most crops would wither within days. This was not supposed to be possible. These farmers, the Tohono O'odham, were growing food in what scientists would later confirm as the most arid region on Earth, where rain-fed agriculture is practiced. They had been doing it for centuries. This was not survival. This was sophistication on a level that Western science had never imagined. Archaeological evidence pushes the story back further. Domesticated Tepary beans appear in the Tehuacan Valley of Mexico, dating to 2,500 years ago. In Arizona, the Hohokam sites reveal Tepary cultivation going back 1,000 years. These were not primitive settlements scratching for food. The Hohokam built complex canal systems. They developed irrigation technology that would not be matched in the region for another 800 years. But genetic research tells us the full truth. Domestication began 5,000 years ago in northern Mexico. One single domestication event that created the most drought-tolerant food crop humans have ever developed. The Tohono O'odham did not just grow these beans. They became known as the Bean People. The name Papago, which outsiders called them for centuries, comes from Papavi Quadam. It means Tepary eaters. Their mythology says the Milky Way itself is made of white Tepary beans scattered across the night sky by a grandfather protecting his grandson. They created over 100 distinct varieties, each adapted to specific microclimates and soil conditions. So, what did they know? Let me tell you what is actually inside. Tepary beans contain approximately 24% protein by dry weight. 1 cooked cup delivers over 12 grams of complete plant protein. Pinto beans, the ones the government handed out as commodity food, contain around 21%. That 3% difference adds up across a lifetime, across a generation, across a civilization. But protein is just the beginning. 1 cooked cup of Tepary beans delivers 13.36 grams of fiber. That is nearly half your daily requirement in a single serving. The fiber in Tepary beans is not ordinary fiber. It contains high amounts of soluble fiber that forms edible gels, gums, and mucilages in your digestive tract. This creates a physical barrier that slows the absorption of everything you eat. The mineral profile tells the same story. Higher calcium than common beans, providing a crucial source for those who cannot consume dairy. Higher iron, higher zinc, higher magnesium, higher phosphorus, higher potassium. The copper content exceeds 20% of your daily value per serving. The folate content does the same. Everything your body needs to regulate blood sugar, build bone, and sustain energy through long desert days without the crashes that destroy modern metabolisms. But here is what nobody tells you. Tepary beans have the lowest glycemic index of any bean ever measured. lower than kidney beans, lower than black beans, lower than the navy beans nutritionists recommend. The secret lies in two characteristics that scientists are only now beginning to understand. First, an unusually high content of soluble fibers that form gels and mucilages in your digestive system. Second, a specific type of starch called amylos that your body digests extremely slowly. The combined effect prevents the blood sugar spikes that destroy pancreatic function over time. It creates sustained energy release that keeps you full for hours. It promotes satiety without the insulin roller coaster that drives modern overeating. Pinto beans digest rapidly in comparison. The Tohono O'odham did not have a word for diabetes. They did not need one. So here is the question nobody wants to answer. In the 1920s, Tohono O'odham farmers produced 1.8 million pounds of Tepary beans every year. They farmed over 20,000 acres using sophisticated water harvesting systems called Ak-Chin that their ancestors had perfected over millennia. Special planting songs were sung to Ai Itoi, the creator, asking that the earth be blessed with an abundant harvest. The system worked. For 5,000 years, it worked. Then came World War II. The men joined the military. The women stayed behind. The farms went dry. The children were shipped to reform schools to become more American. The boys learned to be mechanics and carpenters. The girls learned to be cooks and maids. Nobody learned to farm Tepary beans. When the soldiers returned, they did not return to their fields. They took jobs on the new large-scale cotton farms that industrial irrigation had made possible. The cotton needed their labor. The Tepary beans needed their knowledge. The cotton paid wages. The Tepary beans paid in health that would not be missed until it was gone. You cannot patent a bean that has been grown for 5,000 years. You cannot control a seed that farmers save and replant generation after generation. You cannot profit from a crop that needs no irrigation, no fertilizer, no pesticides. You cannot sell water to farmers who do not need it. You cannot sell diabetes medication to people who do not get diabetes. You cannot build an agricultural empire on a plant that makes empire unnecessary. The Bureau of Indian Affairs drilled permanent wells across the Tohono O'odham nation starting around 1920. The 63 communities relocated permanently around those water sources. The federal government distributed commodity foods: white flour, lard, processed cheese, canned foods, and pinto beans. The pinto beans were not the same. They digest faster. They spike blood sugar higher. They do not contain the slow-release amylos starch that Tepary beans evolved over millennia, but they were cheap. And they were available, and the government called it assistance. By 1949, the 20,000 acres of Tepary cultivation had collapsed to 2,500. By 2000, fewer than 25 acres remained. By 2001, the Tohono O'odham produced fewer than 100 pounds of Tepary beans, 100 pounds, down from 1.8 million. The health consequences arrived within a single generation. In 1940, doctors identified only 21 cases of diabetes among the Akimel O'odham living on the Gila River. By 2006, 38% of adults had type 2 diabetes. That is 5.5 times the rate of their genetic relatives in Mexico who continued to farm and eat traditional foods. The Tohono O'odham now have one of the highest diabetes rates on Earth, 15 times the national average. Researchers call it bad sugar. The Tohono O'odham call it the price of progress. They did not suppress the Tepary bean through conspiracy. They suppressed it through replacement, through convenience, through a food system that could not profit from health. But here is what they could not erase: the bean itself, the knowledge itself. But knowledge does not die. It survives in the hands of grandmothers who never stopped cooking the old way. It passes through kitchen conversations that no policy can regulate. The Tohono O'odham kept growing Tepary beans in small garden plots, even when industrial agriculture declared them obsolete. They continued singing, planting songs to Aitoi, their creator, asking that the earth be blessed with an abundant harvest. They harvested in October when 80% of the pods turned brown and crispy. In Mexico, farmers across Sonora and Sinaloa continued cultivating teparies for family meals, not famine food. Premium cuisine, the rich, nutty flavor passed down through generations who knew what their bodies needed. In the 1970s and 80s, an organization called Native Seeds Search began identifying Tepary bean sources and promoting their revival. Today, they conserve nearly 100 accessions of domesticated and wild Tepary beans adapted to both low and high desert environments. In 1996, the Tohono O'odham Community Action was founded to address community health through culturally based responses. Their farm grew from a quarter acre to 100 acres. Their production increased from 100 pounds to over 60,000 pounds. Researchers in sub-Saharan Africa recognized what American agriculture had forgotten. They introduced Tepary beans to drought-stricken regions where common beans could not survive: Botswana, South Africa, Zimbabwe. The bean that American policy abandoned is now feeding communities on the other side of the world. University of Sheffield scientists discovered that Tepary beans can use 40% less water than common beans. They are engineering this trait into other crops to prepare for climate change. But it was incomplete. Half the world never forgot. The other half was taught to worship the replacement. That moment is now. So here is what you do. Find Tepary beans through Native Seeds Search, Rancho Gordo, or specialty food suppliers who work directly with indigenous farmers. They come in 3 colors. White Teparies are sweeter and creamier, with a delicate flavor that stands alone. Brown Teparies have a robust, earthy flavor, perfect for hearty stews. Black Teparies carry a hint of lime that chefs prize for sophisticated dishes. Recognize that these beans cook differently than what you are used to. Soak them overnight for at least 8 hours. Simmer them slowly for 2 to 4 hours. A crock pot on low for 8 to 12 hours brings out their natural sweetness. They stay whole and dense, never getting mushy. Perfect for soups, stews, and cold salads where texture matters. When pureed, they become creamy enough for dips, spreads, and even desserts. Cumin and garlic complement them beautifully. So do sage, bay, oregano, and thyme. Chipotle flakes add smoky depth that honors their southwestern origins. One important note: like all dried beans, Tepary beans must be thoroughly cooked until completely tender before eating. Undercooked beans contain compounds that can cause digestive discomfort. Low and slow is the rule. If you have specific dietary concerns or medical conditions, consult with a healthcare provider before making significant changes to your diet. Reclaim the name that industrial agriculture tried to erase. Say Tepary. Teach your children what the Tohono O'odham knew for 5,000 years. Every person who plants Tepary beans is one more voice proving that nutritional wisdom cannot be erased. Every person who cooks them is one more kitchen where health returns. Every person who shares them is one more crack in a food system that profits from disease. The Tepary bean is not just food. It is resistance, the crop they replaced, the knowledge they buried, the food they taught you was primitive. The Tohono O'odham knew. The cotton farmers who needed their labor definitely knew. Now you know. The Tepary bean is still here, still growing in desert soil that would kill any other crop, still stabilizing blood sugar the way it has for 5,000 years, still waiting for anyone willing to learn what empire tried to forget. A bean that grows without water, a bean that feeds without disease, a bean that remembers what we were taught to forget. It can feed you. If this opened something for you, subscribe. Every share helps preserve knowledge they spent a century trying to erase. The next vault opens soon.